Alright, hello people, I'm the dude, and this is my review slash rant of the TV series Boardwalk Empire. If you haven't seen it, it is a period piece, 1920s, Prohibition, bootleggers. They're taking over various cities and they're struggling for power against each other politically and, and just straight out slugfests, killing each other, gangsters, that kind of thing. There's a lot of focus on their relationships between each other, which is really good. If it was just a period piece for the sake of being a period piece, I wouldn't watch it. I'm not big on history for the sake of history, if that makes sense. It's just not entertaining to me. This one is more about the relationships between the characters than it is the history. And I gotta be honest, the TV series sucked me in. It really did. I want to say the first 5 or 6 episodes are pretty much throwaway episodes in the first season. I don't know how I got through those episodes. They were a real slog, mainly because it was mostly about Nucky Thompson. And Nucky Thompson is the surrogate main character in this TV series. He's there every single episode of the first 2 seasons, and yet I was never invested in him at all for any reason. And I'll go into why. It's not hard to describe. In fact, it's very easy. Everything that happens to Nucky, it's meant to be suspenseful. It's meant to be entertaining in that way. What's he gonna do? How's he gonna solve this problem? What's gonna happen to him? That kind of thing. But it never goes there, because Nucky's character, they just keep driving it home throughout the first and second season that there's nothing he can't handle. There's no situation he can't get on top of. I mean, between his money, his political clout, which he has ridiculous connections politically, and between just the people that work for him that are able to get things done, there's no situation he can't get out of. And throughout the first 2 seasons, it just seems like they keep bringing these obstacles against Nucky, and I never really cared. I absolutely knew that he was going to come out on top every single time, and it just took all the suspense away. So for the most part, for those first 5 or 6 episodes, it's all Nucky Thompson. It's all him. And even in those early episodes, they're constantly driving home that he is the best at what he does. He is constantly in control of everything. He is never, ever going to miss anything. Nothing is going to go over his head. So, I don't know. I mean, I never liked his character, which it seems odd that I said I was addicted to this series, because he's literally the main character for, I want to say, over 50% of the first 2 seasons. He's the main character. He's the focus. And he's not the reason I watched the series. But anyways, the other main character is Nucky's protege, James Darmody. James Darmody is the reason I was sucked into this series. Everything that happens to him is riveting, for the most part. I mean, his character is highly flawed. His relationships are really back and forth. You have no idea where they're going to go at any one time. His business relationships are constantly backfiring in his face. He's constantly struggling with taking power and keeping power, controlling those under him and those that he's working with, his business partners. Everything that happens to him, you have no idea where it's going to go. And unlike Nucky Thompson, who is basically untouched for the most part by the end of season 2. I mean, the worst that's happened to him is he got shot in the hand out of 2 seasons of being a mobster, whereas everyone else has had people they know die. They're either in the process of, or at the very least, you don't know what's going to happen to them in relation to other people who have power. Are they going to come after him? Are they going to kill him? You're never really fearful for Nucky's life. I mean, even though they go for 2 different assassination attempts, right afterwards, after people have tried to kill him, they drive it home that Nucky is completely unworried about anything, because he just doesn't care. I mean, he's constantly walking around out in the open, no protection, know nothing. I mean, he uses words to fix everything like it's nothing. And it leads to this really odd circumstance where you're never really worried about anything that's going to happen to him. Whereas James Darmody is the complete opposite. You have no idea when he's going to break down, when the people that are working with him are going to stab him in the back, what's going to happen to him and his family, what's going to happen to him and Nucky by the beginning of the second season. You have no idea. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It seems like by the beginning of the first season, they were working towards James taking over the reins from Nucky, and I thought that was a great idea because Nucky was a really boring character, like I said. And huge spoilers coming up. If you want to watch the show, if you don't want the end of season 2 spoiled, turn off the video right now. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so at the end of the second season, after they've spent the entirety, and I mean the entirety of the second season, turning James into the focus of the show, Nucky takes a back seat, and even tertiary, secondary characters get as much screen time as Nucky Thompson in the second season. So you're thinking that James is going to be the new star of the show. Huge spoiler, they kill him at the end of the second season. James Darmody, let me make this as clear as possible, the only interesting character in this entire series, the one character that sucked me into this series, the character that was, at the very least, this audience's point of view, the only character that had anything invested in, they killed at the end of the second season. Just to put that into perspective, in the director's opinion, this was in one of their interviews, James Darmody was the second biggest character in the series. I would argue in the second season, he was by far the number one character in the series. But let's just put that on the back burner. What series kills off the second most important character? It's just ridiculous. It makes no sense. I mean, it'd be like, I don't know how to put this. It'd be like if they killed off Han Solo. That's not even an exaggeration. Han Solo got less screen time than James Darmody did by the end of the second season. It defies all logic. I have to put it in perspective of the show, though, which the show worked towards the conflict between Enoch and James Darmody. It did that very well, actually. It built up their relationship and how it fell apart, and they tied up all the loose ends by the end of the second season, especially the very last episode. So, from a story standpoint, they got their ducks in a row. They did what they needed to do to kill off James Darmody. I have no problem with that. From a story, screenplay, writing, director standpoint, they did everything they needed to do. The problem is, from an audience standpoint, this would be like, literally, like if you killed off Han Solo. I mean, imagine if in, let's say, I don't know, Empire Strikes Back, they killed off Han Solo halfway through the movie. That's what this feels like. I mean, it seems like such a stupid example, but it's the only way I can really put it to make you understand. If you've seen the original Star Wars movies, you know how big Han Solo's character was. He wasn't the main character, which, like I said, I'd argue that at the very least, by 1/3 into the second season, James Darmody had taken over the show. He was the show by that point. But let's just forget that. Let's just assume that he's still the second character. You don't do that. You don't kill off Han Solo. It doesn't make any sense from a business standpoint, you know? I mean, the audience doesn't want to see Han Solo die. Obviously. Because they love Han Solo by that point. So yeah, I mean, from a story standpoint, you knew that at some point, either Nucky was going to go or Darmody was going to go. You knew one of the two had to go because they weren't going to forgive each other. And one of them was going to run the city. So one of them had to leave or die. One of the two. And by the end, just because of what had happened with James's father dead, which James's father was the one with all the clout, the one who had all the connections. Basically, he was the power behind James throughout the second season. Once his father died, you knew that James wasn't going to take over. That was what they were leading towards, that James was going to take over Atlantic City, take it from Nucky. But once that happened, you knew it was over, once his father was dead. And I was hoping that they would go back to the first season where James became more of a secondary character, not dead, not perfectly gone from the series. That he would, be put on the back burner for a while. Maybe he'd leave the city, go back to Chicago with his friend Al Capone, or, something, do his own thing. No. They make it definitively clear that at the end of the season, he's dead. Nucky shoots him twice in the face. We see the bullet holes. He's gone. He's not coming back. And at that point, I couldn't help but think, this is the first thought that went through my head. I will not watch season 3. It doesn't matter how good it is. It doesn't matter what anyone tells me about it. It doesn't matter what the reviews are. The only character that I was invested in at all, they killed off. That's all I cared about. Everything interesting that kept me hooked about this series was James Darmody, his character, his flaws, his struggle, his relationship with his family and Nucky and trying to take power and everything. The war, he went through the war and all his bad memories from the war. All that stuff is now gone because the character's gone. And if the character's gone, I'm gone. That's the bottom line. I guess that's the point of this review. They took a very good series that admittedly started off really painfully slow. I'm not sure how I got past those first 5 or so episodes in the first season because it was just bland. But by the second season, I was completely invested. I really legitimately wanted to see what was going to happen. And the second season did not disappoint up until the finale, up until the very end. And then it was just like they nailed the coffin shut with an audible thunk. In my case, at the very least. This audience, the one that's speaking to the mic right now, is gone. They've lost me completely. They could have done anything with James's character as long as he was still there. As long as he wasn't dead. Because then I'd have hope at some point that he would become the star again. That they'd focus on him again, which is all that really mattered about this series to me. But no, he's gone, so I'm gone. They've lost at least one viewer. Does that matter? Probably not. One viewer means nothing. I could probably guarantee you that there's many more people that were invested in James's character by the end of the second season, and they won't come back for the third season either, for the exact same reason. By the end of the second season, he was all I cared about as far as the series. And it's not just that he was an amazing character, it was that they handled all the other characters so poorly. Nucky Thompson, he could have been a really interesting character. It's not the actor that pulled off James's character, it was the story, it was the interactions that he was given as an actor with the other actors. Nucky, it's hard to invest anything in a character that you always know is going to win, Even when he's down, they're constantly reinforcing this point by secondary characters coming in going, well, you can't count Nucky out, you can't believe that he won't be the one on top at the end of the day, that kind of thing. Just throughout the entire season they're spewing this crap. And all that does is reinforce that Nucky is always going to win. And you can't have an interesting character like that. It doesn't work that way. I don't know. This is a rant as much as anything, but the point of the review is that by the beginning of the second season, especially, well into the second season, I really liked this show. I was hoping that there would be another season. I hadn't seen anything about it on HBO, so I went to look up to see that there was another season, and I was happy that there was one. Until I got to the end of the second season, and now I don't care anymore. That's it. That's all there is to it. If there's a point to this little video here, that's the point. I don't know what they were thinking. And I have to think that the other people that are thinking the same way, that you couldn't pay them to watch the third season. And I can't understand why they would do that. I've looked at a couple of interviews, and most of it is just them saying things like, we wanted to be bold, we wanted to be different, we wanted to surprise our audience. Well, it was a surprise, I'll give you that. Not a good surprise by any stretch of the imagination, not even in the scene while it was happening. While it was happening, once I knew for a fact, once it had gotten that far into the scene that I knew that they were going to kill James Darmody, it was like a train wreck. I mean, everything just kind of slowed down, and I was like, oh, come on, you can't be serious. They can't be doing this. I mean, even though I knew by that point that it was heading towards that, I was still hoping. Up until the last millisecond. Up until Nucky pulls the trigger and shoots James. I was hoping that something else was going to happen. I was going, please don't do this. Please, because I like this series. I want to keep watching it. Please don't do this. And when he pulled the trigger, it's like everything, the thought process in my brain just shut off. You know, I didn't want to believe that's what just happened. Because they just killed the series for me, basically. But yeah. So yeah, that was my opinion on Boardwalk Empire. I was really looking forward to a third season, and now, yeah. So yeah, for what it's worth, I'll see you guys next time.